The coffee in David Rivers' cup had gone cold hours ago, but he barely noticed. Earth's first ambassador to an alien species had more important things on his mind than caffeine. Through the massive viewing window of New Geneva Station, Jupiter's swirling storms looked peaceful compared to the chaos in his thoughts. 3 months had passed since the Hegemony Council made contact, and something felt wrong. The aliens called themselves peaceful explorers, representatives of a grand confederation that spanned dozens of star systems. Their ships gleamed like silver teardrops against the void, technology so advanced it made humanity's greatest achievements look like stone tools. They spoke perfect English, claimed to have studied Earth's broadcasts for decades, and offered membership in their galactic community. It sounded too good to be true. Eva Martinez knew it was. The security chief had spent 20 years learning to spot lies, first as a detective in Mexico City, then as head of orbital defense. The aliens smiled with their strange, elongated faces, but their eyes remained cold. When they demonstrated their technology, showing holographic star maps and energy weapons that could vaporize asteroids, she noticed they never actually handed anything over for human examination. Every gift came with restrictions. Every answer led to more questions. Tom Bradley was just trying to fix a communications array when he stumbled across the truth. The young technician had been working late in the station's lower levels, recalibrating satellite feeds, when his equipment picked up an unusual signal. It wasn't coming from Earth or any human source. The transmission was encrypted, pulsing between the alien ships in rapid bursts. Tom's curiosity got the better of him. Breaking alien encryption should have been impossible with human technology, but Tom had always been good with puzzles. He spent 3 days running the signal through every decryption program he could find, modifying code and trying new approaches. When the message finally decoded, he wished he had never started. The words were in perfect English, but their meaning was terrifying. Phase 1 complete. Subjects show expected compliance patterns. Recommend proceeding to biological deployment. Estimated conquest time, 72 hours after weapon activation. Prepare standard colonization protocols. Tom's hands shook as he read the message again. Subjects, conquest, weapons. The peaceful aliens weren't offering friendship. They were preparing for war. He copied the files and ran through the station's corridors, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might burst. Ambassador Rivers had to know. Everyone had to know. David Rivers listened to Tom's report with growing horror. The young man's evidence was overwhelming. More intercepted messages revealed the truth about the Hegemony Council. They weren't explorers or diplomats. They were conquerors who had perfected a simple but effective strategy. First, they approached primitive species with offers of friendship and advanced technology. While the target species grew dependent and complacent, the aliens studied their biology, psychology, and weaknesses. Then came the weapons, specifically designed to exploit everything they had learned. Eva Martinez gathered her security team as fast as she could. The aliens had been planning this for months, maybe years. Their ships weren't just visiting. They were positioned strategically around Earth's orbital infrastructure, ready to strike. Worse, the biological weapons were already in place. The aliens had been releasing them slowly through their cultural exchange programs. Atmospheric processors they claimed would help Earth's environment. The 3 humans stood in the station's command center, staring at evidence of humanity's coming extinction. Around them, their colleagues continued their daily routines, unaware that their friendly alien visitors were actually their executioners. David knew he had to warn Earth, but the aliens controlled all long-range communications. Any message he sent would be intercepted and blocked. Tom suggested using the station's emergency beacon, a system designed to broadcast on all frequencies simultaneously. It would alert Earth, but it would also warn the aliens that their plan had been discovered. Eva agreed it was their only option. Better to fight with some warning than die in ignorance. As Tom activated the beacon, alarms began blaring throughout the alien ships. The Hegemony Council had been monitoring human communications, waiting for the perfect moment to begin their assault. The beacon changed everything. Within minutes, their sleek vessels began powering up weapon systems that had remained hidden behind peaceful facades. Ambassador David Rivers watched helplessly as the first alien ship turned toward Earth, its hull glowing with energy that could sterilize continents. He had failed in his mission to establish peaceful relations, but perhaps he had given humanity something more valuable. He had given them a chance to fight back. The lead alien commander, a tall creature with pale blue skin and multifaceted eyes, appeared on the station's main screen. When it spoke, its voice carried none of the warmth it had shown during diplomatic meetings. Your resistance is noted but irrelevant. Your species has already been exposed to our biological agents. Surrender will reduce unnecessary suffering. Eva Martinez stepped forward, her hand moving to her sidearm out of pure instinct. We don't surrender. Ever. The alien's expression didn't change, but something flickered in its strange eyes. Your defiance is entertaining but futile. We have conquered 47 species using identical methods. None have survived beyond the first week of actual combat. Your primitive weapons cannot penetrate our shields, and your biology cannot resist our toxins. Tom Bradley looked up from his console, where emergency reports were flooding in from Earth. The biological weapons were activating across the planet, released from atmospheric processors in every major city. But something unexpected was happening. Instead of the mass casualties the aliens predicted, human immune systems were fighting back. Hospitals reported initial symptoms followed by rapid recovery. The alien bioweapons weren't working as designed, David. Rivers smiled grimly as he processed the reports. Maybe you should have studied us a little longer. The alien commander's composure cracked slightly. Impossible. Our biological agents have never failed. Eva Martinez checked her weapon and looked out at the approaching alien fleet. Then you've never met humans before. The first shots of the war began as energy beams lanced down toward Earth's surface, striking military installations and government buildings. The aliens expected quick capitulation, the same pattern they had seen on dozens of worlds. Instead, they received something they had never encountered in their long history of conquest: defiance that grew stronger under attack. The battle for humanity's survival had begun, and already the invaders were learning their first hard lesson about the species they had chosen to destroy. Rachel Kim had always been fascinated by impossible things, which made her perfect for studying alien biology. She had spent her career examining viruses that shouldn't exist and bacteria that defied conventional science. Now, deep in a bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, she was watching something truly impossible happen. The alien bioweapons were dying. The screens around her showed data from hospitals across the globe. The aliens had released their biological agents 12 hours ago, expecting mass casualties within the first few hours. Instead, human immune systems were adapting at speeds that broke every rule of evolutionary biology. The alien toxins, designed to trigger organ failure and neurological collapse, were being neutralized by antibodies that shouldn't have existed. Robert Hayes had seen enough war to know when an enemy was confused. From his command post in NORAD, the general watched satellite feeds of alien ships hovering over major cities, their weapons firing continuously but achieving nothing close to their intended effects. The neural disruptors that should have left humans catatonic were causing mild headaches. The gravitational weapons that had crushed entire civilizations were making people dizzy for a few minutes before they adapted. In Tokyo, a family huddled in their apartment as alien energy beams swept across the city. The father, a construction worker named Hiroshi, felt the neural disruptor pass over them like a wave of static electricity. His wife and children experienced brief disorientation, then recovered completely. Outside their window, other humans were emerging from buildings, looking around in confusion, but very much alive and functional. The alien fleet commander Thane studied the reports from his war council with growing bewilderment. Every biological weapon in their arsenal had been deployed. Pathogens that had wiped out entire species within days were being treated by human immune systems like common colds. Neurological agents that had reduced brilliant civilizations to mindless drones were causing symptoms barely stronger than alcohol intoxication. Rachel Kim discovered the reason when she examined blood samples from affected humans. Human evolution had been shaped by constant warfare, not just between humans but between humanity and every virus, bacteria, and environmental threat their planet could produce. Ice ages that should have killed them had made them stronger. Plagues that should have ended their civilization had trained their immune systems to fight impossible battles. Humans weren't just adapted to survive. They were adapted to overcome. In London, emergency responders found something extraordinary happening. The gravitational weapons, designed to crush buildings and people beneath impossible weight, were having an unexpected effect on human physiology. Instead of being flattened, people were getting stronger. Their muscles were adapting to the increased gravity in real time, their bones were becoming denser, their cardiovascular systems were improving. The weapons designed to destroy them were making them more powerful. General Hayes received reports that defied military logic. Human weapons, primitive by alien standards, were proving remarkably effective against alien technology. Their energy shields, calibrated to deflect advanced plasma weapons, couldn't handle the chaotic energy patterns of human gunpowder and explosives. A group of Marines in Afghanistan had destroyed an alien ground unit using nothing but rifles and rocket launchers. Thanes. Confusion turned to alarm as his losses mounted. The Psychological Warfare Division reported complete failure. Images of destroyed worlds and threats of extinction, broadcast to human communication networks, had achieved the opposite of their intended effect. Instead of breaking human morale, the broadcasts had unified the species in ways their analysts said should have been impossible. Political enemies were cooperating, ancient rivalries were forgotten, and every human on the planet had apparently decided to fight to the death. Dr. Rachel Kim made her most important discovery while analyzing neural tissue samples, human brains, shaped by millions of years of problem-solving and adaptation, processed threats differently than any species the aliens had encountered. Where other civilizations responded to overwhelming force with surrender or panic, humans responded with creativity and determination. Their neural patterns showed increased activity under stress, not the shutdown response the alien weapons were designed to trigger. In New York, a group of teenagers proved her point. When alien ground forces landed in Central Park, the local military was quickly overwhelmed by superior technology and numbers. The teenagers, led by a girl named Lisa, who had grown up playing tactical video games, organized the civilian population into an improvised resistance network. Using cell phones, social media, and intimate knowledge of their city, they coordinated attacks that turned the aliens' technological advantages against them. The alien soldiers, programmed to fight conventional military forces, couldn't adapt to opponents who used playground equipment as weapons and turned subway tunnels into deadly mazes. Their advanced sensors, designed to track organized military units, couldn't process the chaotic but effective tactics of humans who fought like their lives depended on it because they did. Robert Hayes watched the satellite feeds with growing amazement. Across the planet, similar scenes were playing out. Humans were taking alien weapons from defeated enemies and figuring out how to use them within hours. They were modifying their own technology in ways that shouldn't have worked but did. Most importantly, they were refusing to give up no matter how overwhelming the odds appeared. Thane received his final shock when his science division reported on human adaptability. The species wasn't just surviving their weapons. They were evolving in real time, developing resistances and countermeasures faster than the aliens could deploy new attacks. Humans exposed to energy weapons were developing natural electromagnetic shielding. Those hit by neural disruptors were becoming immune to further mental attacks. The gravitational weapon exposure was creating a generation of humans who could operate effectively under crushing pressure. Rachel Kim's research revealed the truth that the aliens had never encountered in their centuries of conquest. Humans weren't just another primitive species to be cataloged and eliminated. They were a species shaped by constant struggle, endless adaptation, and an absolute refusal to accept extinction. Every weapon the aliens used made them stronger, every attack made them more determined, and every threat only increased their unity. As reports flooded in from around the globe, one fact became clear to both human defenders and alien attackers. The invasion wasn't going according to plan. The aliens had expected to face a typical primitive species, weak and easily broken. Instead, they had encountered something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that became more dangerous the more pressure was applied to it. The war was just beginning, but already the outcome was becoming uncertain. Sarah Mitchell had never expected to become a weapons designer, but war has a way of changing people's career paths. 3 weeks ago, she had been a materials scientist studying carbon fiber composites in a quiet university lab. Today, she was crouched in the wreckage of a downed alien fighter, reverse engineering technology that was supposed to be beyond human comprehension. The alien ship had crashed in a cornfield outside Denver after being shot down by a farmer with a hunting rifle. The pilot, apparently confident in its shields, hadn't expected the chaotic energy signature of human gunpowder to penetrate its defenses. Sarah's team had arrived within hours, eager to understand how the aliens' technology actually worked. What they found surprised everyone. The alien technology, while incredibly advanced, was also rigidly designed. Every system had specific parameters and predictable responses. There was no room for improvisation or adaptation because the aliens had never needed those qualities. Their enemies had always been conventional, following logical patterns that could be analyzed and countered. Humans were different. Frank Walsh proved that point perfectly. The mechanic from Detroit had no formal education in aerospace engineering, but he understood machines in ways that didn't require textbooks. When alien ground forces landed in his neighborhood, Frank retreated to his garage and started building. Using parts from old cars, farm equipment, and whatever else he could find, he created weapons that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. His masterpiece was a device that looked like a motorcycle engine. Attached to a satellite dish, it fired concentrated bursts of electromagnetic energy that completely disrupted alien electronics. The aliens' sophisticated targeting systems, designed to handle advanced enemy weapons, couldn't process the crude but effective energy patterns Frank's device produced. 3 alien walkers were destroyed before they figured out what was happening. Amy Foster had always been told that military tactics required years of study and experience. The lieutenant was discovering that rules written by humans for fighting humans didn't apply when facing aliens. Her unit had been trapped in downtown Chicago for a week, surrounded by alien forces that should have overwhelmed them easily. Instead, they were winning through pure unpredictability. The aliens fought like computers, analyzing threats and responding with calculated precision. Amy's soldiers fought like humans, changing tactics randomly and making decisions that defied logical analysis. When the aliens adapted to their frontal assaults, the humans switched to stealth attacks. When the aliens countered their stealth tactics, the humans began using psychological warfare that confused and demoralized their emotionally limited enemies. The breakthrough came when Amy realized that the aliens couldn't understand human creativity. Their war machines were programmed to counter every known military strategy, but they had no protocols for dealing with opponents who made up new rules as they went along. A group of her soldiers had successfully ambushed an alien patrol by pretending to be street performers, complete with music and dancing, before attacking with weapons hidden in their instruments. In Seoul, a group of students demonstrated the same principle on a larger scale. Led by a computer science major named Min, they had turned their university into a fortress using nothing but academic resources and imagination. The aliens' advanced sensors couldn't distinguish between real threats and the elaborate decoys the students created using holographic projectors from the physics department. The students' greatest success came when they hacked into the alien communication network using techniques that shouldn't have worked. The alien cybersecurity was designed to repel sophisticated attacks from other advanced civilizations. It had no defenses against the crude but creative methods humans used, including tactics learned from video games and social media hacking. Meanwhile, The alien High Council was experiencing something unprecedented in their civilization's history. Panic. Commander Thane's reports described impossible situations, where primitive humans were not only surviving, but actually winning engagements against technologically superior forces. The Psychological Warfare Division reported complete failure across all fronts. The aliens had tried broadcasting images of their previous conquests, showing the destruction of civilizations far more advanced than humanity. Instead of surrendering, humans used the broadcasts as intelligence gathering, studying alien tactics and weaknesses. They learned from every image, adapted their strategies based on every threat, and grew stronger with each attempt at intimidation. Dr. Sarah Mitchell made her most important discovery while studying captured alien prisoners. The aliens were physically and mentally incapable of the kind of rapid adaptation that humans considered normal. Their evolutionary history had been shaped by stability and predictability. They had developed advanced technology precisely because they needed external tools to handle environmental changes that humans managed through biological and behavioral flexibility. This meant that while aliens excelled at creating and using sophisticated equipment, they couldn't innovate under pressure the way humans could. When their planned strategies failed, they had no backup options except to try the same strategies with more force. Humans, faced with overwhelming odds, invented entirely new approaches to warfare. The proof came from battlefields around the world. In Australia, ranchers were using sheepdogs and horses to coordinate attacks on alien ground forces. The aliens' tactical computers couldn't process the idea of humans fighting alongside animals as equal partners. In Brazil, farmers were growing plants that interfered with alien sensors, creating natural camouflage that their advanced detection systems couldn't penetrate. Frank Walsh's garage had become an unofficial research center where mechanics, engineers, and scientists worked together to create weapons from everyday objects. They developed bullets that could penetrate alien armor using techniques learned from automotive manufacturing. They built communication systems from car radios that the aliens couldn't monitor or jam. Most importantly, they proved that human ingenuity was more valuable than alien technology. Amy Foster's unit received new orders that reflected humanity's changing strategy. Instead of trying to match alien technology, human forces were focusing on tactics that exploited alien weaknesses. Humans were naturally chaotic, unpredictable, and adaptive. These traits, which had often been problems in peacetime, became devastating advantages in war. The turning point came when the aliens deployed their ultimate psychological weapon, a broadcast showing the complete destruction of Earth's surface, cities burning and oceans boiling, followed by an ultimatum to surrender within 24 hours. The alien leadership expected mass panic and immediate capitulation. Instead, the broadcast had the opposite effect. Humans around the world saw the images not as a reason to surrender, but as a preview of what they were fighting to prevent. Parents looked at the burning cities and held their children closer. Soldiers saw the devastation and fought harder. Scientists worked faster to develop countermeasures. The threat that should have broken human resistance only made it stronger. Commander Thane received his final order from the High Council: retreat and regroup. For the first time in their species' history, the aliens were withdrawing from a conquest. But Thane refused to abandon the mission. His pride and his civilization's reputation demanded that he find a way to defeat these impossible humans. He ordered the deployment of planet-killing weapons, massive orbital cannons that could crack continents and boil oceans. If humans couldn't be conquered, they would be eliminated entirely. The High Council protested that such weapons were reserved for absolute emergencies, but Thane was beyond caring about protocols. He had staked his career and his species' dominance on defeating humanity. He would not accept failure. James Wright had never been afraid of dying, but watching the alien planet-killer weapons charge up in orbit made him reconsider his life choices. The massive orbital cannons were unlike anything humanity had faced before. Each weapon was the size of a city block, powered by contained stars and capable of cracking planets in half. Intelligence reports suggested they had destroyed entire Solar systems, when previous conquests had proven too difficult, the energy readings were beyond comprehension. Earth's most powerful nuclear weapons were fireflies compared to the destruction charging above their heads. Every government scientist agreed that direct impact would mean the end of human civilization and probably all life on Earth. The aliens had apparently decided that if they couldn't conquer humanity, they would eliminate it entirely. Catherine Adams stood in the White House Situation Room, surrounded by world leaders connected through emergency communications. The President of the United States looked older than her 60 years, the weight of species survival pressing down on her shoulders. Every military advisor had given the same assessment. Conventional defense was impossible. The planet killers were beyond anything human technology could counter, but James Wright had been studying captured alien technology for weeks, and he thought he had found a solution. The captain had been a test pilot before the war, someone who specialized in flying experimental aircraft that shouldn't have worked. His approach to alien technology was the same: ignore what the manual said, and find out what actually happened when you push the limits. His team had discovered something interesting about alien shields. They were incredibly sophisticated, capable of deflecting energy weapons that could vaporize mountains. But they were also precisely calibrated, designed to handle specific types of attacks from other advanced civilizations. Human weapons, crude and chaotic as they were, sometimes penetrated the shields simply because they operated outside expected parameters. James proposed using the same principle on a massive scale. Earth's magnetic field, enhanced by alien shield generators running in reverse, might create an energy feedback loop when the planet killer beam struck. Instead of absorbing the attack, the modified field would reflect it back through the aliens' own technology. It was insane, dangerous, and probably impossible. It was also their only chance. The plan required suicide missions to capture functioning alien shield generators and transport them to key positions around the globe. James volunteered to lead the most dangerous assault, targeting the alien command ship that orbited directly above North America. His team consisted of volunteers who understood they probably wouldn't survive the mission, but were determined to give their species a fighting chance. Maria Santos had been a shuttle pilot for NASA before becoming humanity's most experienced alien spacecraft operator. She had learned to fly captured alien fighters through trial and error, surviving crashes that should have killed her and figuring out control systems that defied human logic. Her job was to get James's team to the alien command ship alive. The assault began with coordinated attacks on alien positions worldwide. Every human military unit, from professional soldiers to civilian militias, launched simultaneous strikes to distract the aliens from the real mission. The planet killer weapons were nearly fully charged, their contained stars building toward a release that would sterilize Earth's surface. James's team fought their way through the alien command ship using tactics that combined military training with desperate improvisation. The aliens had superior technology and numerical advantages, but they couldn't adapt to humans who changed their approach every few minutes. Corridors designed for logical tactical movement became death traps when humans ignored conventional strategy. The shield generator control room was defended by the aliens' best warriors, creatures bred specifically for combat and equipped with personal armor that could deflect tank shells. James's team defeated them using smoke grenades made from fire extinguishers, improvised explosive devices built from medical supplies, and hand-to-hand combat techniques that relied more on desperation than skill. Maria Santos kept their escape route open by flying captured alien fighters against their former owners. Her squadron consisted of pilots from different nations who had learned alien flight systems through pure necessity. They fought with a combination of professional skill and creative madness that left the alien pilots unable to predict or counter their attacks. The moment of truth came when James activated the modified shield generators. Earth's magnetic field suddenly strengthened beyond anything in the planet's geological history, powered by alien technology that was designed to protect but was now being used to reflect. The planet killer weapons fired simultaneously, releasing energy equivalent to several supernovas directly at Earth's surface. For a terrifying moment, it seemed like the plan had failed. The alien energy beams struck Earth's atmosphere with enough force to boil oceans and crack continents. But instead of penetrating to the surface, the beams encountered the modified magnetic field and reflected back toward their sources. The feedback loop James had theorized about became reality. The effect was catastrophic for the alien fleet. Their own weapons, designed to penetrate any known defensive technology, couldn't handle being reflected back through their energy distribution systems. The planet-killer weapons exploded in chain reactions that consumed 3/4 of the alien armada. Ships that had survived countless battles against advanced civilizations were destroyed by their own reflected firepower. Commander Thane survived long enough to send a final transmission to the alien High Council. His message was brief but contained information that would change galactic civilization forever. Humans were not like other species. They didn't just survive extinction-level events. They learned from them, adapted to them, and turned them into weapons against their enemies. The victory came at enormous cost. Cities around the world lay in ruins from the initial assault. Millions of humans had died in the fighting, and entire regions were contaminated by alien weapons. But humanity had survived the impossible. They had faced weapons designed to destroy planets, and not only survived, but turned those weapons against their creators. Catherine Adams addressed the world from the ruins of Washington, D.C., standing before cameras with smoke still rising from alien crash sites behind her. Her message was simple but carried implications that reached far beyond Earth. Humanity would not be content to simply defend their home planet. They would ensure that no other species suffered what Earth had endured. James Wright looked up at the alien wreckage orbiting Earth and realized that the war wasn't over. It was just beginning. The aliens had treated humanity as another primitive species to be conquered or eliminated. They had learned too late that humans were something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that became more dangerous. The more pressure was applied to it, the surviving alien ships were retreating toward the edge of the solar system, carrying word of their defeat back to the Hegemony Council. For the first time in their civilization's history, they had encountered a species they couldn't conquer. But they had also taught that species advanced technology and given them reasons to seek revenge. Maria Santos piloted her captured alien fighter through the debris field that had once been humanity's greatest threat. The ship's technology was beyond anything humans had developed, but she was learning to use it with typical human adaptability. Around her, other human pilots were doing the same, turning alien technology into tools for human purposes. The real war was about to begin, and this time humanity wouldn't be fighting defensively. They had learned that the galaxy was full of species suffering under alien domination, civilizations that had been conquered using the same tactics attempted on Earth. The difference was that those species had surrendered when faced with overwhelming force. Humans had a different response to overwhelming force. They found ways to make it irrelevant. Patricia Reynolds had always dreamed of commanding a starship, but she had never imagined it would be an alien vessel redesigned by human engineers who learned advanced technology through trial and error. 6 months after the failed invasion, Admiral Reynolds stood on the bridge of humanity's flagship, a captured alien dreadnought that had been transformed into something unprecedented in galactic history. The ship combined alien engineering with human tactical doctrine, creating a vessel that was both technologically advanced and utterly unpredictable. Human crews had modified the weapon systems to fire in patterns that confused alien targeting computers. They had rewired the engines to operate beyond safe parameters, because humans considered safety margins to be suggestions rather than absolute limits. Most importantly, they had turned a ship designed for conquest into a tool for liberation. Michael Torres had been an automotive engineer before the war, specializing in making cars more efficient and reliable. Now he was designing space stations for species that had never known freedom. His latest project was an orbital facility above Kepler Prime, a world that had been enslaved by the aliens for over 3 centuries. The station would serve as headquarters for the Free Worlds Alliance. Humanity's attempt to create a galactic government based on liberty rather than domination, the concept was revolutionary. Every previous galactic civilization had been built on conquest and hierarchy, with advanced species ruling over primitive ones through force and intimidation. Humans proposed something different. A voluntary alliance where species contributed according to their abilities but retained complete sovereignty over their own worlds and cultures. The idea terrified the remaining alien leadership. They understood conquest and submission, but they couldn't comprehend a species that fought not for territory or resources but for principles. Human behavior violated every rule of galactic politics and military strategy. Worse, it was proving successful beyond anything their analysts had predicted. Patricia Reynolds received reports from across the galaxy that confirmed humanity's growing influence. Liberated species weren't just grateful for freedom. They were actively joining human military forces to free others. The combination of human tactical innovation with alien technical knowledge was creating coalition fleets that the traditional alien powers couldn't match. On Rigel 7, a species that had been enslaved for 1,000 years was learning to use their natural telepathic abilities for military coordination with human commanders. The aliens had suppressed these abilities because they made their subjects difficult to control. Humans encouraged them because they made military operations more effective. The Centauri refugees, survivors of a world destroyed by alien planet killers, brought advanced medical technology that humans integrated with their own biological adaptability. The resulting life support systems could keep human soldiers alive in environments that would kill any other known species. They could also help other species survive conditions that their evolution had never prepared them for. But the most important addition to the human alliance came from an unexpected source: former alien soldiers who had abandoned their own species to fight alongside humans. These defectors brought detailed knowledge of alien military tactics and technology. But more importantly, they brought proof that the human concept of fighting for principles could overcome even genetic programming. For conquest, Admiral Reynolds led the largest liberation fleet in galactic history toward the Dominion's core worlds. The combined force included ships from dozens of species, all united by the human idea that freedom was more valuable than life itself. The aliens' traditional strategy of divide and conquer had failed completely when faced with opponents who genuinely cared more about each other's liberty than their own survival. Michael Torres worked frantically to establish supply lines for the advancing fleet. His engineering background had taught him that wars were won by logistics as much as tactics, and he was applying human industrial efficiency to galactic-scale operations. Captured alien manufacturing facilities were being converted to produce equipment designed by humans, but built with alien precision. The key breakthrough came when human engineers learned to modify alien replication technology. The aliens had used these systems to mass-produce identical ships and weapons, maintaining strict quality control and predictable performance. Humans used the same technology to create thousands of unique variations, making their fleet impossible to counter with conventional tactics. Each human ship was different, modified by its crew to match their specific combat preferences and tactical doctrines. No two vessels had identical weapon systems or defensive configurations. The aliens, accustomed to fighting predictable enemies with standardized equipment, found themselves facing an armada that defied analysis. The final battle began when the Liberation Fleet reached the Dominion capital system. The aliens had concentrated their remaining forces around their homeworld, creating defensive positions that should have been impregnable. Their fleet outnumbered the human alliance by more than 10 to 1, and their technology was still technically superior to anything the humans had developed independently. But the humans weren't fighting alone, and they weren't relying solely on technology. The Liberation Force included species with abilities that the aliens had spent centuries suppressing. Energy beings who could disable electronics with their presence. Hive minds that could coordinate attacks across thousands of ships simultaneously. Shapeshifters who could infiltrate alien command structures. Patricia Reynolds coordinated the assault from her flagship, But the real leadership came from the collective determination of every being in the fleet. Humans had taught their allies that individual initiative was more valuable than following orders, and that creative solutions were more effective than established tactics. The battle's turning point came when the aliens deployed their final weapon, a device that could shut down all electronic systems within a star system. It had ended previous rebellions by leaving enemy fleets powerless and helpless. When activated against the human alliance, it initially seemed to work perfectly, but humans had learned to build technology that functioned even when it shouldn't. Their ships kept fighting using backup systems that ran on principles the aliens didn't understand. Manual controls that should have been impossible to operate became functional through human determination. Weapons that should have been inoperable continued firing through pure mechanical ingenuity. The aliens watched in horror as their ultimate weapon failed to stop the human advance. Ships that should have been dead in space continued attacking using methods that violated every principle of advanced engineering. The humans were literally willing their technology to work through sheer refusal to accept defeat. Michael Torres coordinated the ground assault on the alien capital city. His engineering skills had evolved into strategic planning abilities that combined human creativity with knowledge gained from dozens of liberated species. The attack succeeded not through superior firepower, but through the simple fact that the defenders couldn't understand enemies who fought for something other than personal survival. The final surrender came when the last alien commander realized that humans offered something unprecedented in galactic history: mercy for defeated enemies. Instead of enslaving the alien population or destroying their civilization, the humans offered them membership in the Free Worlds Alliance as equals. The terms were simple: abandon conquest and help build a galaxy where all species could develop freely. Admiral Reynolds stood in the ruins of the alien capital, surrounded by representatives from hundreds of species that had been enslaved, conquered, or nearly extinct. The galaxy's new charter was being written by beings who had learned that diversity was strength and that freedom was worth any sacrifice. The final document established principles that would have been considered impossible just months earlier. No species could rule over another. All beings had the right to develop according to their own nature. Military force could only be used to protect freedom, never to impose control. Most importantly, any species that violated these principles would face the combined opposition of every free world in the galaxy. Michael Torres designed the symbol that would represent the new galactic civilization, a simple image showing different species standing together as equals. It was placed on ships, buildings, and official documents across thousands of worlds. But its real power came from what it represented: proof that the universe's strongest force wasn't technology or weapons, but the unbreakable spirit of those who refused to surrender their freedom. The war was over, but the real victory was just beginning. Humanity had become the universe's unbreakable force not through conquest, but through their unwavering commitment to liberty and justice. The galaxy, once ruled by fear, was entering its first age of genuine peace and cooperation, guarded by the species that had proved impossible to break. David Rivers, the former ambassador who had first discovered the alien deception, stood before the new Galactic Assembly and delivered humanity's final message to the universe. His words were simple but carried the weight of everything their species had learned through fire and struggle. "We did not seek this war," he said, addressing representatives from thousands of worlds. "We wanted only peace and friendship. But when we were threatened with extinction, we discovered something about ourselves that changed everything. We learned that the strongest force in the universe is not advanced technology or overwhelming firepower. It is the refusal to accept injustice, no matter the cost." The assembly hall contained beings from every corner of the galaxy, species that had been freed from centuries of oppression. Some were former slaves who had never imagined they could be equal to their conquerors. Others were refugees from destroyed worlds who had thought their cultures were lost forever. All of them had learned the same lesson: humans didn't just fight for themselves. They fought for the idea that every sentient being deserved freedom. Eva Martinez, now Director of Galactic Security, watched the proceedings from the observation deck. The former security chief had seen humanity transform from a single isolated species to the guardians of galactic liberty. Her forces included volunteers from hundreds of worlds, all trained in human tactical doctrine but encouraged to contribute their unique abilities to the common defense. The most important lesson humanity had taught the galaxy was that diversity made civilizations stronger, not weaker. The Old Dominion had tried to create uniformity through conquest, forcing all species to conform to their standards. The Free Worlds Alliance celebrated differences, finding ways for each species to contribute according to their natural strengths. Tom Bradley, the technician whose accidental discovery had started the war, now served as head of the Galactic Communication Network. His systems connected thousands of worlds using technology that combined alien engineering with human innovation. More importantly, they carried messages of hope and cooperation instead of threats and demands for submission. The network had become something the galaxy had never seen before, a way for species to share knowledge freely without fear of conquest. Medical discoveries were distributed to every world that needed them. Agricultural techniques were shared to help planets recover from alien devastation. Most importantly, stories of successful resistance were broadcast to any species still suffering under oppression. Admiral Reynolds concluded her final military briefing with a promise that resonated across the galaxy. Any species that chooses conquest over cooperation will face not just human forces, but the combined power of every free world. We have learned that freedom is not just worth fighting for. It is worth dying for. And more importantly, it is worth living for. The transformed galaxy bore little resemblance to the empire of fear that had existed just 1 year earlier. Trade flowed freely between worlds that had been enemies for millennia. Scientific research accelerated as species shared knowledge instead of hoarding it. Most importantly, young beings from hundreds of worlds grew up believing that freedom was their birthright, not a privilege to be granted by their superiors. The humans who had started as Earth's desperate defenders had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that conquered through liberation rather than subjugation. They had proved that the strongest force in the universe was not the ability to destroy, but the refusal to be destroyed. Their legacy would endure for millennia, ensuring that the galaxy would never again fall under the shadow of those who believed might made right. The final entry in the galactic historical record was written by David Rivers himself. His words became the foundation for everything that followed. Humanity discovered that they were unbreakable, not because they were stronger than their enemies, but because they fought for something stronger than themselves. That force, the determination to protect freedom for all beings, became the foundation upon which a new galaxy was built. It was a galaxy where strength was measured not by the ability to conquer, but by the willingness to sacrifice for others. And in that galaxy, humanity had proven themselves to be truly unbreakable.